The UN has admitted several employees of UNRWA may have been involved in the horrific October 7 attack on Israel. An investigation found 9 UNRWA employees were linked to Hamas's attack, which killed 1,200 people. Joining us now is human rights lawyer and executive director of UN Watch, Hillel Neuer. Hillel, thank you for joining us. Last time we spoke was earlier in the year, and you warned that Australia may be enabling terrorism if it restored UNRWA funding. And it only took our government a couple of months until funding was reinstated. Firstly, can I get your reaction to the findings of this investigation?
Look, we're talking about a supposedly UN humanitarian agency where 9 of its employees have been found by an internal UN investigation to have taken part in the perpetration of the Hamas massacre of October 7th. We don't know if it's mass murder, rape, other sadistic atrocities. So this is absolutely horrific. And what we're seeing from the United Nations is a kind of mealy-mouthed acknowledgement, a lot of spin, a lot of weasel words. We're not seeing strong condemnations of what this really involves. We're not seeing talk of the international law violations. We're not seeing talk of prosecuting these people. It's not enough to fire 9 people. What about their prosecution? Finally, it's not really only about just a few people. The whole agency itself is rotten to the core.
You mentioned spin. What do you make of the reporting around this? The New York Times had the headline, UN clears half the aid workers accused of taking part in the October 7 attack. Is that really the point?
No, look, this kind of taps into when there were mass violent riots in the wake of the George Floyd episode. We saw headlines like mostly peaceful demonstrators, hold a protest or something, even if they were burning down half the city. So this is the same kind of spin from the New York Times. 9 supposedly humanitarian aid workers were found by the UN to have engaged in the massacre. And their headline is that other people were cleared. By the way, the other people weren't cleared. The UN said that they just found insufficient evidence for a number of them, but they were going to take measures. So the Israelis only gave 12 names at the time. Since then, they've given 100 names. There is evidence. The UN acknowledged it for 9 people. The New York Times tried to find some kind of bizarre, inverted headline. Very disappointing for the New York Times.
UNRWA claims that it's continuing life-saving work with more neutrality than anyone else. How can that possibly be the case?
Well, it's ridiculous. The Colonna report, which was a supposedly independent review that was conducted several months ago, in fact, it was an entirely rigged process. The head of the review, Catherine Colonna from France, is a major on-the-record supporter of UNRWA. 3 Scandinavian groups involved in the review were all major UNRWA supporters, including Kjersti Berg from the Danish group CMI. She is part of a global Palestine network run by UN rapporteur Francesca Albanese that was lobbying to fund UNRWA. So the same person involved in reviewing UNRWA is involved in a lobby group lobbying to fund UNRWA, the same person. So this is the supposedly independent group that found that UNRWA had more neutrality than any other agency. Look, this is ridiculous. I spoke in the Dutch parliament recently and the Swiss parliament, and I said that this was like the Stalinist constitution of the 1930s, which was portrayed as the most democratic in the world. And maybe on paper, there were provisions, but this was a time when Stalin was executing tens, hundreds of thousands of people in show trials. So UNRWA may have dozens of neutrality manuals. All of that is meaningless when hundreds, indeed thousands of UNRWA teachers, school principals, other employees regularly engage in promotion of jihadi terrorism and incitement to anti-Semitism. All of this is documented on our website, unwatch.org. The fact that they claim to have developed neutrality procedures is just really Orwellian.
The UN was asked how the Secretary-General feels about the findings. Let's take a listen.
What does the Secretary General feel about these findings? What is his view of it? What's his personal feelings about what the OIO has
He
found?
believes it's important that we go through this very carefully, given the fact that any involvement in these attacks would constitute a major betrayal of trust. Obviously, there were actions that were taken for the benefit of the agency that were very swift and very decisive in terms of dealing with the individuals who had been named at first. We want to make sure that the reputation of our UNRWA staff, our dedicated staff, including about 200 people who have lost their lives since the 7th of October, is fully recognized, and that UNRWA gets the support that it needs.
So the focus should be on the reputation of UNRWA staff.
Look, it's unbelievable. He was asked specifically, how does the Secretary General feel, his personal feelings about the fact that 9 of his supposedly humanitarian aid workers were found by the UN to have engaged in a horrific massacre, mass murder, rape, torture, other atrocities. And his answer is, we're most concerned about the reputation of UNRWA.
Unbelievable.
That's shameful. Absolutely shameful.
Absolutely. Look, you are in Jerusalem at the moment. We know that Israel's military is preparing for major destruction in the event of an Iranian attack. What can you tell us?
Look, I'm based in Switzerland. I was in the Swiss Alps. I heard that the evil Ayatollah of the Islamic regime in Iran was threatening Israel with an assault with missiles and suicide drones from Iran, from the Hezbollah terrorist proxy in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, Shiite proxies in Iraq and Syria. I decided to show my support and solidarity with the people of Israel by buying a ticket, flying here as soon as I could. I've arrived here in Jerusalem. On the streets, you will see regular daily life, but if you speak to people, they are very nervous. Speak to families, they're sleeping in bomb shelters. Children are traumatized. Where is the international community? The Iranian regime and Hezbollah are openly threatening military aggression in violation of the United Nations Charter. They're saying not only military targets, civilian as well. Where is the outcry from the United Nations? Where is the outcry from the European Union and their foreign minister, Josep Borrell? We're hearing crickets.